Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Jimmy Kimmel is out, but the left is milking this to their complete advantage. We'll give you all details on that, but first, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Right at the end of our show yesterday, we got the news that President Donald Trump announced that he will designate Antifa a major terrorist organization. He described the group in a post on Truth Social as a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster. Yes, what he literally wrote was, I'm pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I'm designating Antifa, a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster, as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, the left had a weird situation here. What do we do about this? We can't say, no, you shouldn't, because everybody's seen them destroy cities. So there was a weird narrative that started coming out. The first thing they started saying was, oh, you just saw a picture. You just saw a picture in 2020, and you think that's what Antifa was. In fact, I had a Democratic strategist say that to me just the other day on Newsmax. Guys, we live in Seattle. Antifa is a fact of life. Jonathan Cho, independent journalist and senior fellow for the Discovery Institute and for Frontlines from Turning Point USA, was trying to get Katie Wilson on record the other day. Katie Wilson is one of the mayoral candidates here in Seattle, and she had basically fibbed about having the endorsement of a black civil rights leader. We'll get to that story in a little bit. And then when she was caught on it, she doubled down. And the black civil rights leader goes, no, I'm backing Bruce Harrell, not her. This is nonsense. So Jonathan Cho was trying to get her on record. And who is her security guards? A bunch of Antifa lunatics. So where she was walking, she had domestic terrorists escorting her. Now I ask you, if I show up to an event and the Proud Boys decide to show up, and they say, we're providing security for Ari Hoffman, you know what I'm going to say? Thank you, but no thank you. Right? But instead, somebody like Katie Wilson, this is now her security entourage. They were blocking Jonathan Cho from even asking her a question. So later in the show, we're going to discuss this Jimmy Kimmel stuff. But before you call Donald Trump a fascist for saying, oh, he's going after the media, you literally have these domestic terrorists who, for years now, have been trying to stop the media, people like me, Katie Daviscourt, Brandy Cruz, Jonathan Cho, from doing our jobs. There's video of the Antifa lunatics attacking the media from Fox News inside the autonomous zone. And that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to these guys. Antifa took over 6 square blocks of Seattle during the autonomous zone in the summer of love in 2020. 6 people were shot, 2 people were killed, all of them were black teens. The left loves to say, oh, no, they're just anarchists. They don't speak for us. Yeah, well, then why didn't you guys do anything about it? If they're anarchists, why didn't you send in the National Guard? Instead, Jenny Durkin evacuated a police precinct, handing them those 6 blocks. Here, take it. Just take it. We're going to evacuate the police precinct. You guys can have it because we're tired of the rioting. Jay Inslee could have come in and said, I don't like what's going on here. What's that army I have working for me? The National Guard. Yeah. We'll have them go in and take care of this. He didn't do that. He didn't do that at all. In fact, he had them giving out sandwiches to homeless people rather than breaking up the autonomous zone. So, Antifa has taken over those blocks along with BLM and other activists. Antifa shows up anytime there's something they think they can cause chaos at. For over 120 nights in the summer of love, summer of 2020, Antifa and other rioters were vandalizing and attacking the courthouse in Portland. That was for 120 consecutive nights. Here's a story I have never told before. This is something that happened to me. So the Seattle Autonomous Zone is either over or almost over. I don't remember exactly when this was. But Portland had its own version of an autonomous zone for just a couple days. But then they saw what was happening in Seattle and they go, no, we don't want this. We're breaking it up. But in those couple days, the Seattle Autonomous Zone took about 3 weeks until it just devolved into a glorified homeless encampment. But the Portland one was there almost immediately. What happened was there was this house that was being foreclosed on. And they said, we're not going to let you take the house. So they set up this encampment around the blocks surrounding the house. And then they decided this is where our autonomous zone is going to be. So I think it was Newsmax. Yeah, Newsmax sent me down there. And Newsmax said, can you go cover this for us and then do a live hit afterwards? Sure, no problem. I get down to the Portland Autonomous Zone, whatever they called it. They had a name for it, but it was a stupid name, so I'm not using it. So I get down there and I got my charger. I put on a baseball hat. I put on a jacket. I go in there with my cameras and everything else, but it's all very, very subtle-like, right? The second I enter the place, unlike the Seattle Autonomous Zone where it depended what time of day you went, whether or not they would harass you for walking into the place, the Portland one, immediately they were on me. And one of these Antifa goons comes up behind me and starts yelling, this guy's a cop. I know this guy. This guy's a cop. As I'm walking through the zone, recording everything, this guy's a cop. This guy's a cop, yelling and screaming as if it's their zone. These are public streets in an American city. And this guy's following me, and this guy's harassing me. So when I'm done getting all the footage I need of the burning tires and the homelessness and the vandalism and everything else, I couldn't believe how rapidly it degraded. It took the Seattle Autonomous Zone at least a week before that got really bad. Until then, it was I don't want to use her words, but sure, let's do it. A glorified block party, street fair, one you might get hepatitis from, but also the bad stuff usually happened at night. That's when the warlord of the Autonomous Zone did his stuff. During the day, they wanted to put on a show for the media. But this one in Portland was like that right away. Now, my favorite part was I leave the zone, the weird Antifa guy stops following me, and I call Newsmax to be like, hey, what time are we doing this? And I call my editor over at the Post Millennial, hey, I was just in the Autonomous Zone. There's a dude following me with a camera the whole time. And I think to myself, I don't really care. In fact, we get into a confrontation. Who are you? Who are you with? I go, that guy said I was a cop. You don't think I'm a cop? Who are you? There's a whole video of this somewhere. It exists, of this confrontation. And then one of them decides to start following me to my car, and I get in my car, and they start following me. Now, what's funny about this, about them following me, is that at some point during this whole mess, they decide they're going to follow me when I'm in my car and leaving. I don't want to call it a high-speed pursuit because I'm in a Charger and I think they were in a Focus. It didn't last very long, but I got away from these guys. You know where I went? The kosher food truck in Portland because they have a gas station there. I did my Newsmax hit behind the kosher food truck in Portland. It's really funny. If you actually see the clip of that, you can figure out where I am. And then I left Portland. Very exciting stuff. But Antifa has seized at least 2 American cities that we know about. At least 2 American cities. So, why would we let them continue to do this kind of stuff? Why would we let them do that? Never mind all the shattering of glass. Never mind all the breakages. Never mind anything else. Why would we let them continue to terrorize us? Domestic terror is exactly that. Terrorizing civilian populations. So the left has an issue where they can't really criticize this because everybody knows Antifa's a bunch of psychopaths. Bunch of cosplaying ninjas. So the left decides to say, they're not with us. They're not with us. Well, then why didn't you guys do anything about them? Antifa wasn't just here. They were in Portland. They were in California. They were in New York. They were in Chicago. They were all over the place. Now you have a different question. How do you go after Antifa? There's a lot of people who say they're members of Antifa. There's a lot of people who have Antifa flags in their bios. There's a lot of teachers who have Antifa flags in their classrooms. How exactly do you go after Antifa? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is who's funding this? A lot of times, they are getting donations. They have gotten donations before. Where is that money going towards? Are they nonprofits? Are they for-profits? Are they political organizations? That money leaves a trail. Where is it going? That's something that needs to be looked into. That's what you need to check out. What exactly does it mean we're going after them? Because any other terrorist organization, that's exactly what they'd be doing. So what are we going to do about Antifa? Now, J.D. Vance was actually on Jesse Waters' show yesterday. Here's what he said about the organization, because don't forget they have their own little offshoot, Trantifa, which are the trans people that identify with Antifa.
The militant transgender movement, is that a domestic terrorist threat?
If you are encouraging people to commit acts of violence against the United States government or against your fellow Americans, absolutely, you're involved in a terrorist movement. I don't know enough about that particular organization, but what you increasingly see, Jesse, is you see people in the trans community and other members of the far left who are saying they are so threatened by negative rhetoric that they must take arms and attack people. If your movement is telling you to commit acts of violence against people for speaking words that you don't like, number one, you're evil, and number two, you are engaged in a terrorist movement, and that's part of what we have to root out in the White House. And this is very important, Jesse. I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've talked to Stephen Miller probably 7 times in the past 2 days. We are working very hard to ensure that the funding networks for left-wing violence, that the radicalization networks for left-wing violence, that if you encourage or fund your fellow Americans or anybody else to commit acts of violence because you disagree with political speech, you are going to be treated like a terrorist organization, and we're going to go after you.
Because Joe Biden said white supremacy was the biggest domestic terror threat.
Which, of course, is absurd. The statistics don't bear that out. But if you look at what the Biden administration did against the phantom threat of white supremacy, we actually need to take some of the lessons and say, if there is funding sources that is going for this stuff, if you're an NGO and you're actually funding riots and other kinds of political violence, why wouldn't we go after that? Why wouldn't we cut off those funding sources? And why wouldn't we prosecute people who engage in violence? It's interesting, Jesse. The people who are saying this is Gestapo stuff, they're calling us Nazis for saying that if you're funding or supporting left-wing violence, you ought to pay consequences for it. It really makes you think that the left has not done any of the soul searching it has to do to actually deal with political violence in this country.
Let me ask you a question. Have you heard any Democrat ever condemn Antifa violence? If you have, send it over to me. I have never heard it. Have you heard any of them condemn the Antifa violence? Because what I saw was Democrats allowing Antifa lunatics and BLM lunatics to destroy their cities in 2020. That lasted 4 months, literally 4 months. I've never heard anybody condemn it. Now, what we know for a fact is we know that different foundations that are affiliated with George Soros and other leftist donors were giving to the Hamas encampments in 2023 and 2024. That money trail exists. We have followed it. We have the evidence regarding that. Antifa's a little murkier, though. I do remember Rose City Antifa doing fundraisers. I do remember Seattle Antifa doing fundraisers. Is there a money trail that leads back to left-wing mega donors like George Soros? That is something I'm very, very curious about. And if so, what does that mean for prosecution and investigation? So, what did J.D. Vance say about this?
Joe Biden's FBI investigated Turning Point, investigated Charlie Kirk.
I found out a couple of days ago, Jesse, that Joe Biden's FBI investigated a dear friend of mine who's a political consultant. They were sicking law enforcement after their political opponents every single day. It's an open secret at this point. We're talking about having law enforcement go after the people who engage in and fund literal violence, and they're saying somehow that's beyond the pale, even though we know Joe Biden's FBI was investigating Charlie Kirk. Maybe they should have been investigating the networks that motivated, inspired, and maybe even funded Charlie Kirk's murder. If they had, Charlie Kirk might be alive today.
Well, we know what else they were investigating. Joe Biden was investigating parents who showed up to school board meetings. Barack Obama was investigating any group that wanted a 501c3 designation that leaned a little bit to the right. So saying, oh, you guys are investigating your political enemies, spare me. Antifa ninja cosplayers were literally destroying our country in 2020. They were around long before that. They're still around now. How many of them actually ended up in jail? Most of the time it was just, let them go, we'll deal with it afterwards. How many of them actually went to jail, if any? I know there were a few, But how many of them actually went to jail? How many of them are out on the streets? It's crazy how much the left supports this stuff, or at least very minimal looks the other way on it.
You talk to the shooter's mother, you talk to the shooter's father, you talk to the local district attorney, you talk to the FBI director or the deputy director of the FBI. You look at every ounce of evidence that we have, and it is clear. This is a person who grew up in a pretty normal family, actually had a pretty good home life, who was radicalized by the far left, by the social networks of the far left, by the ideas of the far left, and got so far down the path of radicalization that he killed my friend. That is not a both sides problem. My friend is dead because of left-wing political radicalization, and if you want to cut that out, then be honest about it and look yourself in the mirror.
I love how the left continues to say that violence is a right-wing problem. They don't want all this information about the shooter becoming normalized in the mainstream that people know about it. You know what we found out today? If you have kids in the car, cover their ears. If you have kids in the car, cover their ears. The suspect played a game online. It's a porn game called Furry Shades of Gay. They were in that community. I'm not going to explain it if you don't know what that means, but that's what they were doing. That's Antifa. That's on the left. We have a serious problem in that community that we are not discussing, that is not being addressed, that the left is terrified of you actually discussing. In fact, in some cases, they're even celebrating the left-leaning violence. You know, just the other day, a New York judge tossed 2 murder charges related to acts of terrorism against Luigi Mangione. Their legal rationale behind this is questionable at best. But the fact that there were people outside cheering at the courthouse, and not like 2, not like Jimmy Kimmel's audience, not like 2 of them out there. There were dozens, if not hundreds of them outside that courthouse cheering for the fact that a guy who is on video, I still have to say, the alleged assassin of a man who is a CEO of a healthcare agency, is being cheered and not being treated with terrorism. Terrorism is to inspire fear, whether it's domestic or foreign. And yet these are being dropped. That is giving a permission for people to say, we're going to do the same thing. By people saying, oh, well, it's a healthcare CEO. He had it coming. He deserved it. Nobody deserves it. Nobody deserves it. It's beyond crazy that there are people who say, yeah, they had it coming. And it's coming from the left, but the left is so desperate to not look that way because they know they're in enough trouble politically already. They don't want to look like they're supporting this stuff, but then actually call out and condemn it. I don't know any mainstream Republican who hasn't called out the Proud Boys or any of these violent organizations on the right. Everybody agrees white supremacists are bad. But yet the left keeps running back to the white supremacists, and every single measurable data point we have shows it is not white supremacists who are causing this, because there's like 10 of them. We do have tons of these Tifa and Antifa activists. It's about time something be done about them. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from our friend Bennett the protester. Bennett, what's going on, man?
Well, bringing back old memories from 2020, hearing about all that. So, okay, 2 quick hits. You were talking about Katie Wilson and the Claude Burfict endorsement. I don't know if you've gone into details before, but I read what she put out, and she said she sent out a screenshot of an email she sent him saying, how a civil rights activist, union leader, as a description of you. I will CC my manager so we can make sure we add you to our endorsements webpage. And Burfict replied, perfect. Not to be okay. His name is.
Yeah,
Burfict,
hang on a second. Hang on a second, Bennett.
Okay.
You may not have seen the thing that Jonathan Cho and I got from Burfict, where it actually is the rest of that conversation. And now you want to say, look, I remember you calling me all mad about the Ann Davidson, Dan Strauss thing, right? If you want to say it's an example of that, where somebody, remember I said at the time, well, is this one of these things where people were confused? Is this one of these things where you thought you had it or not? Fine, but the emails I show kind of contradict Katie Wilson's thing. I'll make sure to send you that article, and you tell me if your thing is more current than mine.
Okay, I just say if she sent an email saying we'll add you to our endorsements page, and he replies perfect anywhere in the email, I would say at that point she has not done anything wrong. Now he can reply and say there was a misunderstanding. You can withdraw an endorsement or clarify you never gave it in the first place.
Like I said, Bennett, I am going to send you. I'm going to send you what I have, and this will be after the show sometime tonight. I got a movie screening to go to. I will send you what I have, and you tell me if yours is more current than mine. Okay?
Okay, so I knew you'd talk about Jimmy Kimmel too, and I want everyone to make sure they understand. This is after the head of the SCC said.
Whoa! Time out! I'm going to censor you, Bennett. No, here's what I want you to do. I want you to listen to. Hang on. I'm going to give you your chance to weigh in. At 3:40 today, I am doing an in-depth analysis of the Jimmy Kimmel thing. Okay, from both sides. I want you to call back, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong or right. Okay.
Deal.
Okay, good deal.
You're wrong. After that. Okay.
Appreciate the call, Bennett. I look forward to talking to you later. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more of your calls, lots more of your texts, plus a homeless guy who is accused of raping a 5-year-old girl in a homeless encampment is released from custody. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to The Who. Yet another reason I always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com. Download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Also at 4:30 today. For those of you who've been listening the past couple days to the gal I was debating on Newsmax the other day, the clip that went viral, she's going to be joining us on the show. And we're going to have a discussion about where the violence is coming from, the left or the right. So make sure you're listening at 4:30 for that one. A lot of you want to weigh in on the Antifa thing, on Antifa being a domestic terrorist organization. Johnny says over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, Ari, isn't Antifa just going to morph into something else? Basic concern, what's going to stop them if they do? It's like what we see happening with DEI right now. They start calling it something else. First it was critical race theory, then it's DEI. Then they have some other name for it, which I forget what it is these days. Yeah, you're right, they may do that. But at the same time, what you have to do is you have to go after these activists at the source. Because I know anytime I go to one of these protests, I always see the same people. So, Johnny, what I'll say is that if you get these same activists, violent activists, I should say, off the streets, then you have a chance at stopping this. And if they morph into something, it's going to have to be a bunch of new guys, where usually we just see the same ones again and again. In fact, during 2020, they were going back and forth between Seattle and Portland. It was literally the same activists in Seattle that were in Portland. Yeah, I think that's actually the way to do it. Rob wants to remind everybody about Kamala Harris's bail fund. Right. Kamala Harris, it wasn't her bail fund. She shared the information about a bail fund on social media to get the rioters out of jail. The Democrats claiming that they don't support the far left is beyond ridiculous. I'll remind everybody she was running for vice president at the time. Steve says, now that Antifa is officially recognized as a terrorist group, will the National Guard be called in and round them up and put them in prison facility for war crimes? Our military service members take an oath to protect us from terrorists, foreign and domestic. I think that's the goal here. I just prefer if the police dealt with it. Unfortunately, politicians won't let them. We saw what happened to Cam Higbee. The police got some kind of stand-down order because they were literally witnessing him getting assaulted and didn't do anything here. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Beth in Seattle. Beth, what's going on?
Hey, I just wanted to remind people that it's not just conservatives that get attacked, but any woman who stands up for women's sex-based rights has been violently attacked in Seattle.
That's an important point, is that when you're not far left enough for Antifa, if you don't wear the ribbon, Seinfeld style, right? If you don't do everything they say, they'll go after you. They don't care who you are. Before I had a radio show, they didn't like that I was running for office, and Antifa was specifically targeting me, my family. That's what Antifa was doing before anybody knew what Antifa was. They just don't like anybody who disagrees with them, and they especially go after this trans-Tifa business. They always go after people who are in favor of protecting women's sports and protecting women's rights. Beth, good call. Appreciate the reminder. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's up?
Well, I'm going to have to agree. I agree that it's this violence is a Republican problem. They're the ones being attacked.
Very good. Very good, Ron. Very, very good. I like that one. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Switching gears back to the other big problem we have around here in Seattle. You remember a couple days ago, we told you a story of what happened over the weekend where there was a Seattle homeless man who was accused of kidnapping and raping a 5-year-old girl inside a city-funded encampment? Well, guess what? He was released from King County Jail last night after prosecutors failed to file charges before the legal deadline. Seattle police arrested 46-year-old Ving Song Billabong Vovong on Saturday at 10 City 3, a sanctioned homeless encampment in the Mount Baker neighborhood, after he allegedly was caught raping the child inside his tent. At a first appearance hearing on Sunday, prosecutors argued there was probable cause to hold him on suspicion of rape of a child in the first degree and kidnapping in first degree of sexual motivation, asked for bail to be set at $750,000. A judge agreed, found probable cause, and set bail. But under Washington law, prosecutors had until Wednesday to formally file charges, and when the deadline passed without a filing, he was released. Now, this is one of two people's faults. This is either the police or this is the prosecutors. because either the police didn't give the prosecutors the evidence they needed to prosecute, or the prosecutors just didn't fill out the paperwork. Casey McNerthy, spokesperson for the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, told Como News, if prosecutors could prove a child molestation or rape case or another crime beyond a reasonable doubt today, the case would be filed. We are confident in the ongoing investigative work of Seattle police, and King County prosecutors will continue to be in contact with the case detective. That sounds like the prosecutors are saying they haven't gotten the information from the police. That's what it sounds like. Now I'll say, think about this for a minute. You know that all the suspects who were arrested for what happened at UW back in May, the over $1 million worth of damage, they still haven't been charged. And I know for a fact that's because the UW police haven't gotten the King County prosecutors all the information they need. And because they haven't gotten them everything they need, you have an issue where they're about to be back in school this week, and those lunatics, some of them are still suspended from campus, but at the same time, they're going to feel emboldened. It's been 3 months and nothing happened. Their friends are going to go, yeah, we can do it and get away with it too. So now you've got a suspected child rapist wandering the city, and you've got low barrier encampments, which don't check ID, which just go, oh, you look homeless. Come on in. This is the problem with Seattle. We don't have a justice system. It prioritizes people like Billabong or Budabong or whatever his name is, and instead, now kids are at risk. When we come back, my friends, holy cow, Barack Obama decided to weigh in on Charlie Kirk's assassination. Oh, did not go well for him. Tell you what's going on when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, it seems like everybody has an opinion on what happened with Charlie Kirk. And somebody decided to make a rare public appearance. Former President Barack Hussein Obama.
Now, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
So he shows up to weigh in on this, and what's his take? His take is that as president, he never went after his political opponents. Before you start yelling and screaming, shall we just play that clip for you?
When I was president, in the aftermath of tragedies, when Dylan Roof went into a black church and, based on his own words, shot a group of folks who were engaged in Bible study and who had invited him in. And according to him, it was for racist reasons. As President of the United States, my response was not, who may have influenced this troubled young man to engage in that kind of violence, and now let me go after my political opponents and use that.
Really? Really? Okay. Let's just fact check you a little bit here. You literally jailed a guy for making a video that had nothing to do with Benghazi to satisfy the mob when you had to go with a false narrative that a video caused the attack on the U.S. Embassy. Give me a break. You literally weaponized the IRS to go after any conservative and Republican group possible. You created a coalition of disaffected groups to say, these are all the people who are responsible for why you aren't where you want to be in life. He was one of the most divisive presidents we ever had. And he led the charge. He led the charge because all the Democrats were doing that at that time. It was beyond insane. And he's going to say that he wasn't? Are you kidding me? Give me a break. That's what he was doing his entire presidency. Oh, wait, it gets better. It gets better. He said some other pearls of wisdom. He compared Israelis to Hamas. This was really fun.
And so those who carried out October 7th had something in their minds that said, these families, these women and children that we are going to slaughter in cold blood are less than us. We are justified in perpetrating that kind of brutality. And those who are now saying we're going to withhold food and medicine and shelter from millions of people as a consequence of those awful events. That also is dehumanizing the people in Gaza who are suffering right now.
Oh, give me a break. First of all, dude needs to speed up. That guy's eating into the time of my show with those long pauses he has. So what's happening right now is they can have the food anytime they want if Hamas stops stealing it. Hamas is trying to prevent the aid from getting to the people, but he's blaming it on Israel. Nothing this guy has ever said has ever been true. He comes out of his little gopher hole when he wants to be relevant again. It's like, oh, come out. Well, let's try and get the Democrats back in power. Here comes Barack Obama. Nothing he said in that entire interview was true or accurate. All he was doing was saying, I was never divisive. Let's be as divisive as possible, is what Barack Obama was just doing in that speech he had. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, Jimmy Kimmel being gone from the late night show. Is this a good thing? A bad thing? Is it a legal thing? We'll discuss when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Jimmy Kimmel being taken off the air is a good thing. Let me start by saying that. He should have been taken off the air years ago. The fact that he is no longer having his low-rated show is a good thing. He's a fool. He's a moron. He's a putz. He's a schmuck. He says awful things, but he has the right to say those awful things. Just like the free market has every right to say, we don't want to watch your stuff anymore. After it was announced that he was basically fired yesterday, his show was taken off the air, I went and looked up Jimmy Kimmel's ratings. It is just a slide down for the last 3 years. Down, 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 with spikes anytime his network is showing like the NBA Finals. That's where the spikes are. So it's not because of him, it's because of the NBA Finals. It's been going down. I used to like Jimmy Kimmel. I used to like The Man Show. Yes, it was disgusting humor. I thought it was funny. But according to the left standards, this is a guy who pretended to molest women in his skits. This is a guy who dressed in blackface. They should have thrown him off the air for cancel culture years ago. He has decided he wants to be a political pundit. And if you want to be a political pundit, I'm sure MSNBC is hiring. I am sure CNN is hiring. You can go do that over there. But Americans didn't want to be lectured that time of night. They want to be entertained that time of night. And the last time I found anything he did entertaining was in 2015 when he had on Doc Brown and Marty McFly for the anniversary of Back to the Future. Since then, I haven't found him funny, and I'm a guy who used to like his comedy. He's only funny now when Matt Damon comes on. That's about it. But you have a little teensy tiny problem. And the problem is Brendan Carr over at the FCC. Now, what's going on is apparently the way this happened was some of the affiliates, for example, over at Sinclair Media, and Sinclair Media makes no secret of the fact that they are a conservative group, said after Jimmy Kimmel made his comments the other night that, oh, well, you know, everybody's trying to say this is somebody on the left who killed Charlie Kirk, but really he's MAGA, he's right-wing, which is completely false. Sinclair Media and other affiliates said, we don't want to air this guy anymore. And when your affiliates don't want to air your content anymore, you have a problem. Now, just to tell you how the late night shows work, because I had a friend who used to work at NBC, and we would get into the Conan O'Brien show and other shows for free all the time. They tape these things at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And they have plenty of time to update them before they air at 11, 11:30 at night. So Monday was the day where we knew for sure this guy's ideology, where they had the press conference around 11 o'clock in the morning. We knew what had happened. We knew what was going on. If he needed to re-record his opening monologue or cut out a joke, they could have done that. And they didn't. And apparently Jimmy Kimmel, because there was so much backlash, was planning on doing an apology in last night's episode or trying to walk it back or saying his comments had been taken out of context, but that never happened. If the free market decided that Jimmy Kimmel should go, that's wonderful. That's great, because that is capitalism at its very, very best. However, if it was the feds interfering in this, now we have a problem. Brendan Carr, the commissioner of the FCC, was on a podcast, and he was talking about how they may have to make this happen, and that's the problem. That's the problem. He said, you could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this. He had other quotes where it seemed like he was leaning on Disney and the other networks that carry his show to do something about this. That's where you have a problem. And the reason you have a problem is because we literally just discussed what Barack Obama did against conservatives. We know he did that. We know what Joe Biden did against conservatives. And if the Trump administration did the same thing to Jimmy Kimmel, that is a First Amendment violation. Now let me add another layer to this for a second. Do you remember when the Biden administration was censoring conservatives on social media? That case went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court gave a really goofy ruling almost, which was, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that, but we're not going to do anything about it. So now you've got a precedent where the Supreme Court may or may not do anything about it, even if it comes before the Supreme Court. But what you need to think about in this case is, and I cannot stress this enough, I'm glad Jimmy Kimmel is off the air. But if the government had something to do about it, what happens when inevitably a Democrat wins an election, which will happen eventually, and they say, we want to go after all of Fox's affiliates. We want to go after all of Newsmax's affiliates. Now, the difference here is just because Brendan Carr said something doesn't mean they actually did it. Donald Trump says things all the time. It doesn't mean they actually happened. Brendan Carr can say whatever he wants because he has freedom of speech also. The question is, did they actually communicate with Disney? Did they actually communicate with any of these outlets to say, take him off the air? If they did that, now you have a legal problem, and we have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. You literally had a guy in a rating slide. Just don't say anything, and he'll be gone. Because now what happens is the left gets to go, oh, they must have done this to Colbert also. Even though Colbert, his show is losing tens of millions of dollars a year, it was a ratings disaster, now they get to say that too. And here's something else. If, and I say this again, if the feds had something to do with this, if they go after Fox, if they go after Newsmax when a Democrat's back in power, they get to say, you did it first. Even though we know that's not the truth, and Barack Obama has been doing this for years, the difference is Jimmy Kimmel is high profile. Groups that apply for tax-exempt status are low profile. Whether you watch them or not, everybody knows who Jimmy Kimmel is. Everybody knows who Jimmy Fallon is. Everybody knows who Stephen Colbert is. They are high profile. Fox is going to be high profile. Newsmax is going to be high profile. And the problem is, if the federal government had anything to do with this, now you have a problem. So I can't stress this enough. Glad he's gone, but I'm worried if the feds had something to do with this or not. Is it just Donald Trump talking? Is it just Brendan Carr talking? Because if they're just talking, they're just talking. But it gives the implication that the feds had something to do with this. And in that case, now Jimmy Kimmel gets to be a martyr, and he was going to be one anyway. Look what happened to Colbert at the Emmy Awards the other night. Kevin, you look like you want to weigh in. I see you got that earpiece ready to go right there.
Yeah, you didn't leave me much time, though. No, I think it's a bunch of things. I think you're right. I think you're right on all of this. I think it's, and I don't think anyone will be able to prove one or the other. But I think at the end of the day, all of these type shows, ratings are going down. I don't watch any of them. No. I have no interest in the format. If there is anything that's kooky or funny, it usually makes its way to social media or online somewhere the next day, but that doesn't help with their ratings.
Right, exactly. Now, if they have found a way to monetize that, that's something, and Saturday Night Live's having a similar problem. In fact, all of network TV is having a similar problem. So you should just let the free market take care of itself, and I hope the Trump administration had nothing to do with any of this. It was just people talking. Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, King County Councilmember is doxing ICE agents and admitted to it. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, another principal in our area is in hot water, and the Democratic strategist I debated on Newsmax is going to join us for round 2. But before we get to any of that, I promised him if he called back, I would put him on the line right away. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our frenemy, Bennett the protester, who wants to weigh in on my analysis of the Jimmy Kimmel situation. What do you think I got wrong? I thought I did a pretty balanced job there, dude.
No, the one time I was wrong was because I didn't think you would agree with me, and that's how you got me.
So you just called back to say you actually agree with my assessment of the situation?
Yeah, well, you got me. There was a clever bit of jujitsu that you pulled there.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Yeah, however, while you are there, just a little point of clarification I have to make because we got a lot of texts about this regarding Fox affiliates. So just to clarify this, because a lot of you were weighing in on the text line about this. Newsmax, you are correct, does not have affiliates. Newsmax cable works differently. Fox, however, has Fox TV division. Fox TV division owns a lot of the Fox affiliates, not all the Fox affiliates. For example, they only bought Fox 13 a few years ago after the autonomous zone. So even though they're called Fox, they weren't Fox News Fox. But that includes Fox Sports, for example. So when you're watching football on Fox Sports, you could have some problems with NFL type stuff. Bennett, what's the last thing you want to say? I think I cut you off there.
No, it's okay, but let me restore balance by disagreeing with you. So while I was on hold, I looked up the Katie Wilson thing. I see the email you're talking about where he was recalling this is after when he got mad and said, I didn't actually endorse you, but his email is describing his recollection of a verbal phone call between them. And I say that is superseded by the screenshots that she have of the exchange where she said, I can add you to an endorsement, and he says, perfect. Because you have a written contract with KVI, I assume, and you cannot say that, Mr. KVI stopped by your cubicle. That's not his real name, but I assume that's a real person that you're referring to.
Mr. KVI is a real person, as a matter of fact. Okay. Yes, he is a real person.
I don't think you have a cubicle either, but
I do have a cubicle. Dude, I'm looking at it right now. It's right outside my studio window. I do have a cubicle. I mean, I don't want an office. I like hanging out with my friends.
Okay, well, I mean, that's the email that I assume you were referring to, and it's just him saying, I remember this conversation differently, but I say that does not contradict what Katie Wilson said. She has a screenshot of an email where she says, can I add you to endorsements? And he says, perfect. So unless he's saying that she faked that screenshot, I say that vindicates her. She did not do anything wrong.
So I'll say, would you give a little benefit of the doubt to Ann Davison, then, that something like this may have happened with Dan Strauss? Neither one of them has provided anything to the contrary.
Well, no, I think what she said happened in that case was that they wanted to do a mock-up of the website. It wasn't that they misunderstood and thought that he had endorsed her. They would just send over a preliminary list to the web design guy, and to do a mock-up, and they accidentally included him even though it wasn't fine.
I will say
that's the story they're saying. They're saying it was not a misunderstanding where they thought he endorsed her. She knew that he hadn't, and they just sent wrong directions to the web guy. I think that's what they said.
Yeah, I'll have to double check that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'll give you benefit of the doubt on that one. But remember what I said when you first called about the Ann Davidson thing? I said it's so easy that these things are usually some kind of screw-ups in the back end. And here in this situation, it sounds like, okay, you've got one version. I'm not saying I have another because not my monkey, not my circus here. You know what I'm saying? But regarding all this that's going on, you've got one person saying one thing. You've got another person saying one thing. You've got an email that shows one thing. You've got an email that's a recollection of another thing. I hear where you're coming from, Bennett. I really, really do. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Ari in Issaquah. Ari, what's going on, man?
Not much. How you doing, Ari?
I'm doing great, man. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. So I don't think the firing of Kimmel is right. The man said what he said, but free speech is free speech. He's on the air. If you want to fire him over his ratings, fine. But don't do it for making a dumb joke and, a MAGA comment. That's just political and stupid.
By the way, I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. Look, if the free market, if everybody was marching on what's he on? ABC. If everybody's marching on ABC studios in New York and demanding his firing and affiliates are pulling out and saying we don't want this anymore, that's the free market doing what the free market does. Remember what happened when Sinead O'Connor tore up the Pope's picture on Saturday Night Live? Holy cow, they almost had to cancel the show. Right, you remember, we're contemporaries, you and I. So if it's something like that, fine. But I agree with you. I don't want the Fed doing this because you have to imagine that power in the hands of your worst enemy and what happens when they decide to use it on us.
I'm glad we agree then, my friend.
All right, buddy. I hope you try and win fantabulous prizes at 5:45, buddy, all right?
You know I will. I got my 6 cell phones waiting. Let's go.
He's like his own bot farm there in the car. Ari, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I'll also mention this. I don't remember the left getting all mad when Gina Carano got fired from Disney. I don't remember them getting mad when Roseanne got fired from ABC. I'm just saying there's a little bit of a double standard here, don't you think?
Yeah, that's the danger when you do this sort of thing. It's always going to come back in that fashion. So, like, why even attempt it?
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. I hope it was not government involvement. I'm going to say that again. I hope it wasn't government involvement. But you know what else doesn't look good for them? Just the other day, Pam Bondi's comments. Pam Bondi the other day is literally saying, well, there's free speech and there's hate speech. That is another layer on top of all this. Plus, never mind the mergers that they have to get approved by the FCC. It's layer after layer after layer. The comments don't help. The comments don't help because then they only add fuel to the fire. I am hoping it had nothing to do with this. But in some cases, you can get yourself in serious legal trouble with comments. For example, our next story. And this is another multi-layered story. So, Brandy Cruz reported this morning that a Facebook post in a left-wing activist group says King County Council member Sarah Perry alerted them to the exact location, including floor numbers, of a hotel where ICE agents are staying. Hang on a second. She's literally giving out the addresses of where ICE agents are staying, including the floor and room number. Now, I went back and looked up Washington's doxxing law. Forget the federal ones for a minute. This happened in Washington. Washington's doxxing law is very, very clear about this stuff and was designed for this exact purpose. Do you think that our Attorney General, Nick Brown, is going to do anything about this at all? My guess would be a big how about no, right? That's likely what we'd be getting there. Exactly. Of course, they're not going to do anything about this. But you know what? The question is, did she actually do it? That sounds pretty bad. So I saw Brandy's story, and I reached out for comment. Sarah Perry apparently posted this on social media this morning after Brandy reached out for comment, after I reached out for comment, after everybody else reached out for comment. You're doxing ICE agents? Here's what she wrote. She sent me a screenshot of another Facebook post. So she put this out into the world. Last night, I posted information regarding ICE presence in our community on my personal Facebook page. Stop. It doesn't matter if it's your personal Facebook page or your political Facebook page. There are 2 Ari Hoffman accounts out there. If I post something dumb on the other one, it's still Ari Hoffman. It's not Clark Kent versus Superman. By the way, same person, by the way. We'll just mention that. So it doesn't matter. It's still you doing this. Oh, that person over there, that profile of mine committed a crime. I didn't do it. Oh, and what is this, the multiple personality defense? While I am deeply concerned for the safety and rights of each of our impacted community members, I shouldn't have included specific and unsubstantiated information regarding their whereabouts. Whoa. She just admitted she did it. She just confessed. Lady, get a lawyer. Get a lawyer or get a PR director or get something. You literally just admitted to committing a crime according to Washington state law. I have to look up the federal regulations regarding this. By the way, Sarah Perry, no surprise here. I've done public disclosure requests for her emails before on other things going back years. She has no problem coordinating with the activists. This wasn't a surprise to me at all. She added, I've removed the post and will continue to do what I can for the safety and well-being of our most vulnerable community members. Thank you for your care and concern as well. Okay, lady, you better lawyer up. Because if I don't know, wait a second, can the Eastern District U.S. Attorney do anything about this, or do they have to stay on that side of the state? Hey, President Trump and the White House, can you guys please get a Western District Attorney, U.S. Attorney out here? We need one right away because Nick Brown's never going to do anything about this. Oh, wait a minute. I can't believe I didn't think about this. I need to send a request for comment to Nick Brown's office. They're never going to get back to me because they never get back to me. But we need to send a request for comment to his office to see if they're going to be doing anything about this at all. She targeted ICE agents. And you know what? While I'm at it, I think we'll have a little fun today. I think I'm going to reach out to the Trump administration and say, hey, guys, she admitted it. Are you going to do anything about this? Kind of curious to see what happens with this whole story. Do you think she should see the inside of the cell? Do you think she should get a fine? What do you think? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, these aren't the only legal things happening in our area. So a few weeks ago, it was last week, you had the White House reach out to Washington State's Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, and say, we want to see your voter rolls. Now, there's two reasons they want to see the voter rolls. One is, are there illegal aliens on it? Where are the illegal aliens? Two, are there illegal aliens on it? Why do you have illegal aliens voting in your elections? So they sent similar letters to 22 states. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division announced on Tuesday that it has filed lawsuits against Oregon and Maine, along with their secretaries of state, accusing them of refusing to provide legally required voter registration records and information about voter list maintenance procedures. Quote, states simply cannot pick and choose which federal laws they will comply with, including our voting laws, which will ensure that all American citizens have equal access to the ballot in federal elections, said Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, who leads the Civil Rights Division. American citizens have a right to feel confident in their integrity of our electoral process, and the refusal of certain states to protect their citizens against the vote dilution will result in legal consequences. The lawsuit targeting Oregon and Secretary of State Tobias Reed alleges violations of three federal laws: the National Voter Registration Act, the Help America Vote Act, and the Civil Rights Act of 1960. According to the Justice Department, Oregon refused to produce a current unredacted electronic copy of its statewide voter registration list, withheld information about the state's voter list maintenance program, and failed to provide registration data for ineligible voters. Hang on a second here. This is fascinating. Let's say that Oregon says, we want to protect the rights of our voters, and we don't want to give out their personal information. Then that means you're going to withhold the voter registration list, and you're going to withhold the registration data for ineligible voters. Okay. Why would you not want to give out the maintenance program? Why would you not want to give out how you secure your voter lists? That should be the easy one to turn over. I'm not saying you have a legal right to withhold any of these, but those should be that should be the easy one to give over. Why won't you give that out? Oregon is particularly significant because it was the first state in the nation to adopt universal vote-by-mail election statewide beginning in 2000. Every registered voter automatically receives a ballot by mail, with returns made either through the postal system or at official drop boxes. The lawsuit against Maine and Secretary of State Shenna Bellows makes similar claims, asserting that the state violated the same laws by refusing to disclose details on the removal of ineligible voters and by declining to release an unredacted computerized copy of its statewide voter registration list. By the way, you guys are making a huge mistake here. I know you want to stick up for the illegal aliens. I know you want to be sanctuary cities. But if you guys give them the ineligible voters, they're not going to go after the other ones that are still on your other lists. It's going to take them time to go through all that. Don't you think? Play the strategic game. You're admitting you have a problem here by withholding all this. Maine is not an all-male state, but it does allow no excuse absentee voting, and a large share of its voters cast ballots by mail. Traditional in-person polling places remain open on Election Day. The Justice Department noted that both Oregon and Maine had previously provided identical information to a private organization while rejecting federal requests, which shows you this is entirely political. So you would give that information to a private organization, but you won't give it to the federal government. I assume it was some leftist I assume it was some leftist activist group, either to protect illegals or to target conservatives. Department of Justice officials argue the selective compliance undermines transparency and violates federal law. Now, the lawsuit comes as the Justice Department is doing this across the country. On Monday, September 8th, Washington Secretary of State Steve Hobbs confirmed his office received a letter from the DOJ requesting a full copy of the state's voter registration database within 14 days. The request, signed by Dillon, specifies that the data must include each registrant's full name, date of birth, residential address, and either driver's license number or the last 4 digits of their social security number. Washington has conducted all-mail election statewide since 2011, making its voter registration list central to the election administration. Hobbs said his office is carefully reviewing the DOJ request before releasing any information. He says, as Washington's chief election official, it's my responsibility to ensure the election process is safe, secure, and transparent. Well, then, why aren't you removing the people who we know shouldn't be on there? Why do we have motor voter laws, which register anybody? We literally had a sex offender who is registered to vote because he bought a white panel van and he was an illegal alien. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't make this stuff up. He was buying a white panel van. He was registering a white panel van and he was a sex offender. Was he trying to sell ice cream or candy out of it? Because that would just complete the equation right there. He says, this includes protecting Washingtonians' voter information and privacy. I will work with all stakeholders to ensure we maintain both. To that end, I do not plan on releasing any information until the DOJ provides me information on what they plan to do with the data. My office will respond to the DOJ once I've had the opportunity to fully assess that information while working with stakeholders and ensuring our response meets both state and federal legal requirements. You know, it'd be one thing if Washington hasn't been hacked a bunch of times, but that information has been out multiple times. We literally caught people who were not supposed to be voting because they were illegal aliens in this state before, and your office was the wronged party and chose not to pursue legal action. We had Glenn Morgan on the show. He says 1 in 7 people, 1 in 7 in Washington, they cannot verify the voter identification information for. That doesn't mean they're illegals, by the way. It just means our system is really, really screwed up. What do you think? This is one of the things that got Washington on the radar in the first place. That's hundreds of thousands of voters that cannot be verified. And they're voting in federal elections. Look, you want to discuss if illegal aliens should be voting in local elections? I'd say no, but I'm happy to have that discussion. I don't think they should be voting in any election because it's illegal. Why does Steve Hobbs want to keep them on the voter rolls? But here's another question. How many ballots do you get in the mail? I know it was only a few years ago before we stopped getting doubles. I know my wife's name is still wrong on the ballots. I know my son was able to register without even showing any form of ID whatsoever. Our voting system is an absolute joke. An absolute joke. So the question is, why do they want to hide it from the feds? It has nothing to do with the sanctuary state stuff. It has everything to do with the fact that when Washington, D.C., finds out how messed up Washington State's voter system is, you're going to have bigger problems than just illegal aliens on there. Are we going to find out dead people were voting? Are we going to find out kids were voting? Are we going to find out people who didn't exist were voting? Wouldn't you want the help in securing the election, Steve Hobbs? I should reach out to his office, too. I bet I know what's going to happen because Bob Ferguson controls the communication for all people in state government. Odds are they're probably not even going to get back to us. But we'll reach out anyway, and we'll tell you what they say. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including another principal in our area is in hot water for not just the comments he made celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, but also the racist ones. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVR. The question is, who is educating your children? There's a principal in Tacoma. His name is Logic Amen. I am assuming that is not his given name. Oh, wait, he's a rapper too? That explains it. So, following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, this guy's social media comments were sent to me and sent to pretty much everybody else under the sun because I saw Libs of TikTok had this at one point. Would you like some of his amazing comments that he had? The irony of both Charlie Kirk and George Floyd being killed by white men. Really? That's the direction you're going with this? Hang on, what else? What other pearls of wisdom has he shared? America has a white male problem. There's something else he wrote. White women either don't have the power or interest to change the problem they are birthing. Holy cow. This is a high school principal. This is a principal in Tacoma, Washington, who still has a job, by the way. Now, what's crazy about this is he's a racist. He is clearly a racist. He is racist against white people. But if you call that out, you can't say that because he's black. Okay, black people can be racist. Asian people can be racist. White people can be racist. Latino people can be racist. Jews can be racist. Everybody can be racist. You can even be self-hating. Some of these cases, I know some people don't like the fact that they're Jewish. You can be any of those things. It's not you get a get-out-of-jail-free card or a free pass on any of this kind of stuff just because of the color of your skin. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, hang on a second here. I did a little Google search for his name because it's kind of unique. And I kind of wondered, what is this feller rap about? So here's what we found. Ready for this? The News Tribune. Hang on. Go to my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. Let's see what I got here. I got Newsmax. I got Daily Wire, Daily Caller. I got Fox News. I do not have the News Tribune in my little black book. Here's the headline. Tacoma assistant principal raps about shooting up a high school. Is that okay? Well, this must have been written last week or something because no way this guy would still be there. Updated May 9th, 2018 at 11:13 a.m. So the Tacoma News Tribune reported on this before the BLM insanity of 2020. Granted, it was after the BLM insanity of 2016. And this guy still has a job? Here's what they wrote. In an era of school shootings, is it okay for a principal to rap about shooting up a high school? The question arises from the after-hours work of Logic Amen, the assistant principal of Tacoma's Lincoln High School, who moonlights as a rapper. He says his songs, including those using the persona of a troubled student threatening a massacre at his high school, are part of his artistic expression. Hang on. On the track titled Cancel Christmas. Oh, let's just pick a fight with everybody. Why don't we now? Give me a reason just to load up a rifle, pull the firearm in the lobby of my high school, leave the halls bloody like a high noon tycoon. I'm about to cancel Christmas. I won't leave a frickin' witness. Nah, I put Santa on my hit list. Celebrate Kwanzaa and cancel all Christmas. If I put that out into the world right now, somebody could say Hoffman said all of that, which I did, right? How long do you think I would last as a radio host? How long would that be, Mr. KVI? How long would that be when I would last as a radio host if I did that as my own original work and put it out there in the world?
Oh, you'd probably be fine. But I take bigger issue with him rhyming high school with rifle.
Yeah.
That doesn't quite work.
That doesn't work. He's not very talented. But also you're saying everybody should celebrate Kwanzaa? Made-up holiday? All right, dude.
Aren't they all made up, though?
Well, it depends who came up with them. Let's do it that way. You want to go down that road, you troublemaker. You're going to light up my phone lines by going after religion like that. You're going to get me in trouble. But here's the thing. So he's anti-Christian. Let's just make sure we got that right. He's anti-Christian. He's anti-Catholic. He's anti-white. He's anti-women. Did I miss it? Oh, he's anti-students. He's anti-students and he's anti-Santa. Did I miss anything?
No, but that might just be his rapper character.
Oh, I see. Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I see. So it's like Hulk Hogan wasn't really a bad guy,
Correct.
but his persona on stage was the bad guy wrestler.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, that don't hold water. Just like Sarah Perry. Just because your online persona says it, you are still responsible for that. And this is the person teaching children? What do you think he's teaching in Tacoma's Lincoln High School? I assume this person subscribes to all the DEI stuff. Amen said that if a student finds it on the music sharing website Bandcamp, this one time in Bandcamp, it will be obvious he's not condoning the, it'll be obvious he's not condoning the lyrics. He says, I think it's condescending that young adults cannot understand with the right coaching and guidance what's going on in my music. What is the right coaching and guidance in your music? The Tacoma School District at the time doesn't have a problem with his song. Superintendent Carla Santorno declined an interview request from the News Tribune, but the district spokesperson, Dan Volpfel, said Amen is not violating any policies, laws, or codes of professional conduct. I'm sorry, what? Are you kidding me? Logic's good work at Lincoln High School has contributed to helping turn around the academic success of students over there in the last several years. In no way has his non-school activities disrupted the educational environment in Lincoln. No, I just talked about a school shooting. Are you kidding me? Holy cow. This is the quality of principal who's teaching the other teachers how to teach and who's supervising the other teachers at Lincoln High School in Tacoma, Washington. Get your kids out of the public schools. When we come back, my friends, a Democratic strategist I had a fun little back and forth with over on Newsmax will be joining us to have a conversation about whether or not the violence is coming from the right or the left. We'll have a discussion about that when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. day I was on Newsmax. And while I was on Newsmax, I don't usually have people from the other side of the aisle in my Newsmax panels. Usually it's just me and somebody else who really likes Donald Trump. And the two of us talk about how much we really like what the right is doing. However, what it was right after they announced the charges for the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. And they had me and a Democratic strategist on to discuss whether the violence was coming from the left or coming from the right. Shall we just say, if you've seen the clips on social media, it was a spirited discussion. Now, to this person's credit, they reached out to me on social media and said, hey, I would love to continue the conversation, and that's what we do here. And since so few people from the other side of the aisle are even willing to have the conversation on my show, I immediately jumped at the chance. Spam filters tried to get in the way, but luckily we have her here now. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Democratic strategist and attorney Madeline Somerville. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for taking the time and for letting us continue the conversation here.
Always a pleasure. So we're going to start from scratch for everybody who didn't see the interview and doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, so they don't feel like they showed up to a party and the movie's half over. So let's start from the very beginning. I think the main point of contention between the right and the left right now is, where is political violence coming from? I will posit a thesis, and you tell me if you agree with it or disagree with it. So my thesis is, there's violence on both sides of the aisle. And at different times throughout our history, it's been turned up on one side, it's been turned up on the other side. What I am seeing right now is I am seeing a trend of it coming from the radical left, and people in mainstream left, rather than saying we disown the radical left the way the right has said we're disowning the radical right. For example, I did a whole segment yesterday ripping Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. I see a lot of people on the left defending what is happening on the extreme left. Would you agree or disagree with that proposition?
I would agree with it to the extent that I would say I'm extremely disappointed. The moment that I found out that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I had a sick feeling, and I took out my phone and I begged like every Democrat that I knew, please say, like, we stand with Charlie Kirk. Just treat him like he's a victim of gun violence at a university, because he is, right? Like, say you stand with him. And I could not believe what I saw and how many people came out against. I'm used to it. You know, I'm on TV. You know, you say your political opinions, people are going to come after you. But there were so many people who acted like, because I stood with him as a victim of gun violence or extremist violence, that I was denouncing the party. And it was extremely disappointing to me to see that. And I've kind of seen it come back around from both sides. So it's when you saw Donald Trump on Fox and Friends the other day, right? And he said, you know, I don't think we can work this out anymore. JD Vance is saying, I don't think we can have a discussion about it. I think maybe the liberals got there 4 years ago, 5 years ago, right? With BLM and Antifa. I think those are the folks that said, we don't want to do this anymore. Like there's no talking. And so I think it's sort of an evolution to where now the other side has said, we're not willing to talk about this anymore. And I appreciate being able to come on and talk about this, because I think it's really important.
So I'll say is that here's where I disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, there were a lot of people on the left. My phone blew up where people were just saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And these are people from very liberal news outlets and a lot of names that a lot of you know out there.
Yeah.
And they were saying, this is awful, this is wrong, this is terrible. But it almost seemed like everybody was couching their statements of, this is awful, this is wrong, but he kind of had it coming. And for me, I more appreciate John Fetterman, who came out with a statement who goes, no, it's wrong, full stop. Yeah. I didn't like when people started couching it. And that was, I think, what put off a lot of people, where they go, no, it should just be, no, this is it, full stop. Now let's talk about how to solve it. Like, for example, you and me having a conversation right now.
Mm-hmm. So this is, I think, how people felt after Charlottesville, when Donald Trump was doing the "they're very fine people on both sides" thing, where he was like trying to appeal to the notion that there were good people in the crowd, right? When you issue a qualifier in there, it riles people up, because you touched a nerve. It's like a liberal talking about the Second Amendment, right? Now everybody's up in arms about it. So it's too close for comfort, I think, there.
So we're talking with Madeline Somerville, who's an attorney and who's a Democratic strategist. And there's a lot that we disagree on, but we're trying to find common ground right now on radical extremism. So let's take this for a minute. Bill Clinton. I am no fan of Bill Clinton's.
Same here.
Okay, excellent. Fantastic. We agree on that. Bill Clinton actually had one of the best statements on Charlie Kirk's assassination. It was really, really good. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you go see it. And then Hillary Clinton shares a picture the other day of Randi Weingarten coming out with her new book about something about why teachers are essential against fascism. I don't think that really goes that direction. I think a lot of people start demonizing the other side. So when they say somebody's a Nazi and, oh, if I could go back in time, I'd punch a Nazi, I'd kill a Nazi, I'd kill Adolf Hitler. I think when you call the entire other side Nazis, I think that's when you start giving permission structures where violence is okay because they're all Nazis. I don't think Hillary Clinton sharing a book from Randi Weingarten, which has the title Calling the Other Side Fascists, actually helps the situation. So would you say that you would say that anybody who calls somebody on the other side a Nazi or a fascist is wrong?
So I would make a distinction between Nazi and fascist, because I do think that assigning somebody an identity that's a part of a political party from history that has a very specific association with the country, yes, is dehumanizing. And that's making a commentary on them as a person. I think when you say that someone is a fascist, that's a commentary on their politics and not them as a person. And so I think you have to be able to comment on somebody else's politics. You can't tell them, I think that your ideology, you can't say that your ideology doesn't fit in with this one kind of politics, right? What if liberals turned into fascists and you said, oh, well, you can't say the word fascist anymore? So I think assigning them a label that makes them very specific and a part of an identity that we associate with evil and demonic, that's bad. But I think the word fascist, in my view, is still okay.
Can you tell me were there any good fascists in history? Because
No.
because when you just say, oh, you're a fascist, you're literally saying Mussolini, you're saying Hitler, you're saying all that, and you're drawing the exact same comparison. So I'm not really seeing the difference. I understand what you're saying from a political approach versus a specific party like the Nazi party. But at the same time, fascism still leads to the same place. So don't you see it being kind of not that much of a difference with your argument there?
I think you can't outlaw saying the word fascist, because if you just think about it like pretend you're a reasonable liberal, okay? If you are trying to deal with the problem of fascism on your side, and you imagine you can't say the word fascism, right? You can't. If you are honestly seeing all of the elements of it and all the boxes are being checked in society today, and you can't put a label on it because that's too dehumanizing, what are you going to do? How are you going to talk about it? So I think that where you can draw the line is when you're commenting on someone's politics versus who they are as a person and making a moral value judgment.
So do you think that President Trump is a fascist? Do you think that J.D. Vance is a fascist?
I do. You
do. What do you have to back that up?
Well, I'm glad that you asked because I have been making a checklist. So some of the primary characteristics of fascism we can talk about. So he has been targeting media outlets. So for example, not even dealing with what's happened with Kimmel. I'm not even talking about that. He signed an executive order on his inauguration day where when he outlawed DEI in the executive branch, he knew he couldn't do it in the private sector. So what he did was, in that same executive order, he instructed the FCC to go after 11 different media companies for FCC violations, so that it was just in the same bill, in the same executive order. They didn't have anything to do with each other. But the point was, I'm encouraging you to do this, and if you don't do it, we're going to come after you. And then there's also been talk about Wikipedia, taking over Wikipedia and controlling what comes out of there. I think that President Trump, rather than respecting the fact that there might be alternative opinions, he'll call it MSDNC or the failing New York Times, right? All that stuff with the repetitions. I think that he's demonized illegal immigrants to a point to where it's insane. Like, every single time I heard him talk about illegal immigrants in this country, he said they're rapists, they're murderers, they're criminals, they're emptying the mental institutions, all that stuff. One fraction of 1% of illegal immigrants have ever even been arrested for a violent crime. So when you characterize all of them as being violent criminals, I know you know what you're doing, right? So those are two tactics, and we could keep going down the list. But my big one right now that I'm trying to communicate is the fact that he's sending troops into different cities. If you want to have a fascist regime, that is an excellent way to do it, because if you make people afraid and they're saying, please come to my city, create security so that I'm not afraid of the immigrants that are around me, so that I'm not afraid of the crime that was there before, but now they're calling attention to it, right? I'm not saying that we don't need to deal with crime. And I am saying, by the way, that Democrats need to admit that they dropped the ball on crime. Because if they don't, then they have no credibility in saying all the stuff that I'm saying. So that's my little spiel for now.
So in the last few minutes we have with attorney Madeline Somerville, who's also a Democratic strategist. And I'll give you the last word on this one, but first I'm going to do my little thing for a second here. So
Sure.
Do you believe that Tim Walz was a fascist for sending in the National Guard to shoot paintballs at people to keep them off their own decks during COVID? Do you believe that Kathy Hochul was a fascist for bringing in the National Guard to clean up the subway system in New York City? Do you believe that Gavin Newsom is a fascist for bringing in the California Highway Patrol to deal with the out-of-control crime in California? Because what you just said, you literally also, because all three of those specific examples that I picked have said the opposite versions of what Donald Trump has said about Republicans, fit your definition of fascism.
So I would agree with you slightly in the first example with shooting paintballs to get people off their porches, because I think that people are exercising their free will and humanity, and that's insane to me. But there are 2 mentions in the body of the Constitution, 3 in the amendments, and 12 in the Federalist Papers that all say that they do not want the president to have his own army, because the southern states after the Civil War wanted to retain autonomy for the states. And so if the governor makes a decision and says, this is how I'm going to handle my problems, then okay. And that's why they've got Title 10 and Title 32. But when the president comes in and says, I want my army in here, all my lights start flashing, because now I got another check on my checklist.
I wish we had more time, because then we discuss the role of commander-in-chief in the military and the presidency, but we're going to leave it there because I promised the last word. Madeline Somerville, Democratic strategist and attorney, I appreciate you being willing to have the conversation and join us today. And for those of you who want to weigh in, you can give us a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Madeline, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus tickets to see The Who. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Download the KVI app, and of course, find us at KVI.com. A lot of you are not happy with me for that most recent interview we did, and it's showing up on the text line. It's showing up on the phone line, and we will take your calls. We will take your texts. We'll take all of them. But why did I just do that interview? Well, if you want to see the clip of me demolishing this person over on Newsmax, you can see it. It's over there. It's out there on the internet. In fact, it went pretty viral. But spokespeople, whether they're from the RNC or whether they're from the DNC, anybody who is a strategist for these things who is sent out with the talking points gets the talking points. Now, the reason I was able to do what I did on Newsmax is because when you don't have the talking points, you can say whatever the hell you want, and you can combat them. When you're stuck to a script, that's all you can say. Those are the talking points for the Democrat Party. That's what a Democrat strategist is recommending the Democrats say. Those of you who are mad I didn't push back on Charlottesville, they're still saying the Charlottesville thing. As long as they keep calling all of us fascists, or Donald Trump a fascist, or J.D. Vance a fascist, they're going to keep losing the argument because they're the ones who are basically equating these guys with Nazis. You do realize that, right? Those are the talking points. We will take your very angry phone calls and texts when we come back during our final hour of Free for All. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, your angry phone calls about my last interview. Streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to The Who. But before we get to any of that, looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on the most recent interview I did with Madeline Somerville, who is an attorney and a Democratic strategist. So we're just going to go right down the list here. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Pete in Florida. Pete, what's going on?
I just want to know, how come you never ask these clowns their definition of fascism?
Well, I think I kind of got a little bit of that there. But what I prefer, and my strategy usually is when I have guests on, and Pete, you tell me if you disagree with me or not, okay? And this is open to debate. I like to give them all the time in the world because I got 2.5 hours to refute everything they say. But also on top of that, I like to hear what they have to say. When I drive to work, I listen to lefty podcasts so I can refine my argument. That's what I like to do. Now, you're 100% right. Should I ask for what the definition of fascism is? Would you like me to have her back so I can ask that question?
Yes.
Okay. So Pete, we could definitely make that happen 100%. But what I've learned is, and actually this was a hard lesson for me. When I first started out here on KVI, I would yell at everybody. I would yell at callers. I wouldn't yell at guests. I was always nice to guests, but I would just yell if somebody disagreed with me. And the truth is, what I figured out is if you let them talk long enough, you get out everything you wanted and it shows it to the audience. So here's the problem right now. When you call the other side a fascist, aren't you feeding into that same violent nature that everybody's saying tone down the rhetoric on? That's a real problem. And the problem is a lot of Democrats are doing that. Like I brought up the example of Hillary Clinton. Right after the assassination, Hillary Clinton is sharing a picture of her holding up Randy Weingarten's book saying teachers are against fascism or whatever it is. Is that what they're teaching in the classrooms? Because that's the head of a teachers union. And then if you're doing that, you are dehumanizing, in my opinion, you are dehumanizing the other side. And when you start dehumanizing the other side, you can't have a conversation with the other side because all of a sudden you think they're fascists and Nazis and all that. I had Donald Trump on my show. I got to say, one of the nicest people I have ever spoken to, not just in the radio show, but in my life. Very charming, very sweet, very nice. I have spent Passover with his children, okay? Very nice people. Very nice. We didn't, have the Seder together or anything. They were on the same program we were. I don't want to make it sound like we're best friends or anything like that. But at the same time, these are not people who are fascists. Fascists, we've seen what fascism is throughout history. Does that answer your question there, Pete?
Yeah, basically. I'm just sick and tired of people distorting the language.
Yeah, I agree with you. But here's the thing. The left will always distort the language. So if you want the definition of whatever it is, it'll change tomorrow. Let me ask you this, Pete. How does the left define what a woman is?
Ask Kachanji Brown Jackson or Jackson Brown or whatever.
I'm not a biologist. I can't answer that question.
Neither am I.
Yeah, Pete, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Terry in Kirkland. Terry, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. Well, I was enjoying my beautiful, wonderful day until the dark rain cloud of ignorance came on your show.
Let's be nice. Be nice. Be nice.
I was being nice.
Yes. Okay. All right.
But anyways, I'm not an attorney, and I know that some of the stuff that she was saying was just out there. I mean, the president has a right to bring in the National Guard, and when the local people aren't doing their jobs, he has every right to do so.
Yeah, I think the problem here is in Washington, D.C., he has every single right to do so. Going into other areas, you might have some legal problems as much as we wish the National Guard would come here to Seattle. But as I analyzed, and I don't know if you heard this segment last week, Terry, when we were discussing, or earlier this week when we were discussing Memphis. Why Memphis? Why not Los Angeles? Why not Chicago? Why not New York? Why not Seattle? Why not Portland? Because Memphis, Tennessee, has a Republican governor. and the governor can cooperate even if the city mayor doesn't cooperate. And that's an easy target there if you want to deal with the crime. When you have to go head-to-head with the governor, and then they're going to start lawsuits and all that, it's not as easy a target, which is why I think he picked Tennessee. What do you think of that theory?
No, I agree with you because I don't think he could come here
right.
and do anything with Turd Ferguson.
I think 100%.
I love it. I say that all the time to the wife now because of you.
Somebody actually sent me a video. This was from the July 4th parade before the election. So he's walking in the parade, and apparently somebody yells out from the crowd, "Hey, look, it's Turd Ferguson." And I go, oh, my God, that's a KVI listener, and now I'm in trouble. Terry, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. Thank you for that, Ken. Appreciate that. Back on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Becky in Enumclaw says, well, she was pretty slick, Madeline the attorney. As far as everybody being afraid, I've seen so many people in crime-ridden cities like Chicago. Where the murderers' murder rate, is at sky-high rates. They showed one person that was complaining about the National Guard coming to the city was a lady who was offended. She had lost a son or a nephew or something, but she welcomed the National Guard. So I guess it depends on if we had any crime against us. Well, actually, Becky, that ties into what I say all the time. What is a liberal, a conservative who hasn't been mugged yet, right? Becky also added she hopes the National Guard comes here to Washington. Yeah. Now, here from Ted, he says, now that Miss Somerville came on the show, where she is wrong is that the citizens of D.C. are living in fear. They're so afraid that they're going out to dinner again now. The citizens of the south side of Chicago are begging for Trump to send help. Public safety is job number one for all governments. So if a city or state government fails, the commander-in-chief has a responsibility to stand in the gap, Ted in Gig Harbor. That was actually the conversation I wanted to have at the end, where she was talking about the president having an army. And what I really want to say, and I made this little comment at the end, Commander-in-Chief is the title of the president. He has an army and a navy and an air force and a space force and a Coast Guard and a whole bunch of other stuff. He literally has all those things. The question is, regarding the Posse Comitatus Act, is he allowed to use them on local places? Becky also added, you were very polite, and that is great. Yes. Pam in Lake Stephen says, keep your enemies closer. Oh, Pam, we don't call the other side enemies. Let's not do that. Nancy in Everett. I like that all the women are chiming in today. Nancy in Everett says, thanks for opening up the dialogue. It helps to know what we're dealing with and also letting the opposition know that we can have the conversation. Here's another one. John in Lakewood agrees with our previous caller, Pete from Florida. Hey, Ari, I'm fine with your interview. Fascism's definition can be explained in a sentence or two, and she can't do it because for her, it's just a label to elicit an emotional, factless movement to violence. You know, the problem is that if you convince everybody they're in the woods and they're working with the Belsky brothers, the movie Defiance with James Bond playing a Jew. Love that movie. Where you're in the woods and you're fighting against the Nazis and you have to do anything to survive. You go back to that trope of, well, in the 1930s, I would have punched a Nazi or I would have stopped a Nazi. You know what you'd be doing if it was the 1930s right now, if that was happening here in America? The exact same thing you're doing right now. That's what you'd be doing. That's a sad state of affairs. It wasn't all the Germans who tried to help the Jews. It was a few select brave Germans who tried to help the Jews. The problem we have is we have very impressionable people who think they're literally going out and punching Nazis. And if you have the other side convinced that everybody who disagrees with them is a Nazi, you have real problems. Feel free to give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I'll also say this. I invite Democrats on the show all the time. Whether you agree with Madeline, whether you disagree with Madeline. The important thing is to have the conversation, and that's what Charlie Kirk taught all of us. I've actually made a commitment to be as welcoming as possible, even though we always are. My problem is the Democrats almost never say yes. Do you know how many requests for comment I have sent to Turd Ferguson's office? Maybe he doesn't like the fact that I call him Turd Ferguson. That's fair. You know how many requests I sent to Jay Inslee's office before I started doing impressions of him? His office literally told me I was fake news, and they would never do an interview on my show. That's why we like people like Adam Smith. We may disagree with Adam Smith, but he is willing to have the conversation. Most of the Democrats in the legislature won't come on the show. Let me ask you this. Was I mean Was I mean at any point? I know the big bad screaming Ari Hoffman, so many people believe is who I am all the time, but was I mean? I'm always nice to our guests. Let them talk. I'm even nice to some of our crazy callers we get. Bennett and I are kind of friends now, Bennett the protester. This is the thing, guys, is that you have to keep having these conversations. When we don't have these conversations, that's when we have real problems. And the person who killed Charlie Kirk wasn't interested in having a conversation. The person who killed Charlie Kirk was interested in silencing his voice. That's what we cannot do. We have to keep having those conversations. Now, the left has a fascinating new narrative out. And the fascinating new narrative is that it's all the violence is on the right. All of it is on the right. It just doesn't hold water. And we found out that the left is using statistics from the ADL. They're using the ADL's hate crime database, the Anti-Defamation League. I know their database is bunk, and I'm saying this even though they're a Jewish organization. Do you know how their database works? It only works if somebody reports the crime to the ADL. At least that's what they told me the last time I asked them why death threats against me weren't in their database. Because even though they were reported to the police, even though they were reported to the FBI, they were not reported through the ADL's website to the ADL. And I find that entertaining because I was asking them for help, and they weren't doing it. I was asking them for that. The ADL, probably the people who are using the ADL website are the people who agree with the ADL's narrative that the biggest threat facing America today is white supremacists. I'm not saying white supremacists aren't a factor, but they're not the factor right now. I live in Seattle, Washington. Antifa could be at any event. Hamasniks could be at any event. We could have these problems from all these other radical groups, and they are all on the left. Antifa and Hamas have teamed up. Hey, Antifa and BLM have taken over 6 blocks of the city. But according to the ADL, none of that's happening. Now, I did look up the ADL's website last night, and they have a very good write-up on Antifa. So if you have it in your database, why are you not actually calling it out when it's so obvious for everybody to see? Let me tell you my 2 ADL stories. The first one was when I was running for office for Seattle City Council. Somebody put a picture of my family online in a white supremacist hate group. It turns out that person was a socialist activist who was trying to rile up the neo-Nazi community against me. Not much of a neo-Nazi community here in Seattle. But what happened was they were discussing different ways to kill me and my family on 8chan, discussing it in detail. So the FBI found out about this. The Seattle police found out about this. There was a whole investigation into it. But during that time, nobody was condemning it. I'm somebody who's a public figure running for office. The mayor didn't say anything. The city council members didn't say anything. My opponent didn't say anything for days, literally for days. The ADL was nowhere to be found. So an Orthodox Jew who goes to a synagogue in Seattle, even the local ADL didn't say anything. Now, eventually, my opponent said something. Eventually, a few other people trickled in. The Seattle Times, I think, called me 4 or 5 days later. The stranger wanted me to prove that it happened. The stranger wanted me to prove it, which is the craziest thing ever. So even though it's all over the internet, the stranger wanted me to prove it. Yes, the journalistic standards of the far left rag, The Stranger. Jenny Durkin took her 10 days, didn't put it out on social media, didn't put it out anywhere, sent it to a Jewish organization, said, if you want, you can have this from me. The ADL took almost as long. And I think the only reason the ADL ever came out with a statement is because my mom ran into one of their board members in New York and said, my son's getting death threats and you guys are MIA. I think they were shamed by another Jewish organization locally as well. As far as I know, that's what actually happened. Nowhere to be found. The ADL also has been nowhere to be found when there's laws that they pass on the books here that claim they're protecting Jews when really they're just protecting the left. And what they're doing is they're protecting Antifa. It's funny to me that anti-doxing law we had spoken about earlier in the show, where Sarah Perry, the King County council member, admitted that she had doxed ICE agents. The anti-doxing law was passed by the ADL. And it was supposed to be about protecting Jews from doxing, protecting politicians from doxing, protecting a whole bunch of other people from doxing. You know what's being used for? To target people like me. Some people are out there coming after me saying I am doxing them for exposing them for the things they say online, even though they're putting them out into the public square. And when I contacted the ADL and said, guys, this thing is being used, you know what I heard back? Silence. Silence. This thing is being used to target Jews who are calling out teachers that promote Hamas. This thing is being used to target Jews who are seeing these hostage posters being torn down. Silence from the ADL. Why? Because the ADL isn't interested in protecting Jews anymore. The ADL is only interested in protecting their political connections. We're going to have an interview this weekend on social media with Shabbos Kestemem. Shabbos Kestemem is the kid who sued Harvard. He's the one who sued Harvard, and they settled with him, and now the Trump administration has gone after them. And something we discussed is the anti-Semitism industrial complex. We have all these organizations that are supposed to fight against this kind of stuff, and they're not even doing it. All they're doing is fundraising off the backs of it. And it's just plain wrong. It's just plain wrong. But now a lot of other people are discussing the ADL's insanity and how the left is using it for their own purposes. Laura Ingraham had on Ryan Gidusky the other day, and he's from the 1776 Project PAC. Listen to what they said about this, because I said, you guys are speaking my language.
Now, the ADL is considered the gold standard of identifying these political violent extremism and attacks stemming from it. But what's really going on here with these numbers? Because the facts cited by Democrats, they seem like those are hard and fast, and Republicans have a lot of explaining to do.
Right. So if you look at the numbers from 2024 alone, of all the people that they cited as right-wing extremists, none, and I mean none, had any political reasoning for attacking or killing victims. One was the case of a man who was a child molester who murdered a young girl. He had 2 swastikas tattoos on him. Therefore, he was a right-wing extremist. Another one was a man who killed his half-brother because he had called the cops on him. That was a case of right-wing extremism because he belonged to a prison gang previously that was a white supremacist gang. None of these affiliations are actually towards republicanism, towards the president. None of them people actually have a record of even voting in many cases. Nonetheless, and yet still, that is considered right-wing extremism. The ADL does not hold the same standard to, let's say, a black gang whose leaders support black power, or a Latino gang, or an illegal alien gang that support La Raza. None of those affiliations are equal. You know who else did not make the 2024 list? Luigi Mangione. They said that there's no evidence that Luigi was a left-winger. Other organizations like the University of Cincinnati, they have a project prosecution that they looked at. They listed a woman who prayed silently and was arrested at an abortion clinic where no one was hurt and no one was injured and no one was killed as violent right-wing extremism. It's completely manipulated numbers in order to create a narrative for Democratic politicians and for talking heads in the media who lie to the American people.
It's like the Josh Shapiro thing. His house was literally firebombed on Passover by a far-left activist who supported Hamas, Free Palestine movement. And they're saying that's a right-winger. Why? By this new definition that if it has something to do with radical Islam, then it must be far right, leaving out the fact that it's the Democrats and the far-left activists who are backing radical Islam. You can play as many word games as you want, but at the end of the day, one side is following through on the violence, one side is calling for the violence, and the other side continues to be affected by the violence. Young Zach today did something that I laughed, but at the same time, it's not that funny. Young Zach brought out bulletproof plates because we were discussing yesterday what I have to wear under my clothing to go to events. Pulled out bulletproof plates. That's where we're at right now, where I have to worry if I go speak at an event, if I go speak at a vigil for Charlie Kirk, somebody's going to take me out too. Do you know how many people said to me this week after Charlie Kirk shooting, I hope that you're taking adequate precautions? It's crazy to me that that's where we're at. You know how many texts and calls I got like that from across the country because people know what I do for a living? And let's be real about my status in this world here. I don't have anywhere near the following of Charlie Kirk. But you know I get at least one death threat a year that's for real that I have to deal with the police on? And I'm dealing with one right now, as a matter of fact. This is because people don't like my ideas. So for those of you who are mad that I platformed a Democrat, I'm not going to be like the ones who want to kill me. I want to have people on to have these discussions because I'm not afraid of ideas. We want to continue having these conversations. And if you want to call and disagree with me on anything, you're always welcome to it. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, our local government and Hawaii and California and Oregon have decided the science is in after a week of existence. And here's the vaccines that are safe, not safe. We'll give you all details when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to see The Who at Climate Pledge Arena. Yeah, another reason I always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. A relative of mine told me that today they were out in a grocery store and they saw somebody they hadn't seen in a very, very long time. And they're talking with this individual and they're just catching up. And they ask the individual how it's going. Oh, good, good, good. And, you know, the person says, I'm on my way to go get my COVID shot. And my relative says, well, what are you doing that for? And the person says, well, I've had COVID twice already, and I just want to make sure I'm up to date on my boosters. I'm sorry. So this thing seems really effective, doesn't it, at stopping the virus? Really, really, really effective. Look, I've made no secret of the fact that I got the COVID jab. Why? Because I wanted to go see my son in Israel, and at the time, Israel was mandating it. So I got the COVID jab. You want to get mad at me about that? Fine. Do I want to get it? No. Was I done having kids? Yes. Did I have concerns? Sure. But I want to go see my son. And you know, you do anything for your kids, including injecting yourself with whatever the hell was in that thing. So if I start having nano chips going through me, I'm going to blame Israel. So I find this entertaining because so many people are so hardwired into that. Are we still saying the line? Say the line. Well, I'm up to date on my boosters. I'm thankful I'm up to date on my boosters and vaccines. So that way I didn't end up in the hospital or dead. You've had COVID twice, but you keep getting the boosters. You know, so for me, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. All my kids are vaccinated and all that, except actually, one of my kids does not have the COVID jab because every time we were going to go take her for the thing so she could come with us on those trips, and she wasn't able to. Every single time, she got COVID. She probably has better immunity than the rest of us to all that, and she's perfectly fine. That's right. So for me, this just illustrates the insanity of the left. We're going to make you get these shots that don't do anything. We're going to make you get these shots where we've seen the side effects. From the beginning, it should have been, look, if you have pre-existing conditions or you're elderly, then you know what? If you want the shot, it is here. It is available for you. But by the time they were already rolling these things out, most people already had COVID. I think at that point, I had already had it twice. Your natural immunity was way better than anything in that shot. You know, every single year, they ask me when I go to my annual physical, do you want the flu vaccine? And I always say no. Do you know why I say no? Because I always get the flu when I get the flu vaccine. I always get sick for a day and feel awful for a day. It just, that's the effect the thing has on me. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's dangerous. I'll probably have to start getting it when I'm elderly. But I do the calculation. Am I going to get sick this year because I got sick, or am I going to get sick this year from the flu vaccine? That's my calculation. And I don't like rolling the dice. My wife has said to me at this point, she says, Ari, you get the flu at least once, if not twice a year. Go get the flu vaccine. And I go, but that means I'm for sure going to get it once a year. Every single time, because anytime I get that flu vaccine, I just feel terrible for like 2 or 3 days. He's getting ready. He's got something to chime in on.
I'm just wondering, because my understanding is that if you didn't get it, and then you, let's say you don't get the shot, and then you do get the flu, it's probably going to be worse than whatever you had from getting the shot.
That's what she said to me.
That's the whole point of that
That's
stuff.
what she said to me also. That's what she said.
Yeah.
That's literally what she said. And what I said was, I just don't like rolling the dice on being, because I know it's going to make me not feel good.
It's going to make you not feel good, but it's not going to be full-blown the flu.
But I don't like not feeling good. That's just me. That's just me. Look, I got my tetanus vaccine the last time I went, or whatever else they gave me. I got all that stuff, right? I just don't happen to like the flu one. But something here I find entertaining. Bob Ferguson, our governor.
Yeah, it's not my name.
All right, Turd Ferguson.
Put out this announcement yesterday on social media. Today, the West Coast Health Alliance issued winter virus vaccination recommendations for COVID-19, influenza, and RSV. So you remember last week they had this little rebellion where Washington, California, Oregon, and Hawaii said, we know better than the CDC. We don't trust that RFK Jr. lunatic. We're going to create our own health agency. You know, the guys who got it all wrong during COVID. We have the documentation to show they all got it wrong during COVID. In fact, we proved that they knew the vaccine was not stopping the spread and still mandated it anyway in their own documentation 6 months before the rollout. So let me make sure I got this right. You guys formed this thing last week, and your sciencing is already done. Hang on. Where'd you get that sciencing from, I wonder? Either you made it up as a political objection to RFK Jr., or you're going off the old recommendations of the CDC. You think they had enough time to do all the sciencing in a week? Do you think that's what it was? Wow, so much sciencing all over the place. Here's what they wrote, actually. Our states are united in putting science, safety, and transparency. Bob Ferguson, the guy who every single time I do a public disclosure request, it's pages and pages of redacted, 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 redacted. Oh, please. These guys are in charge of our health. Hey, you know what? When I need to kill a bunch of old people in a nursing home around here because we know that COVID affects the elderly, I'll make sure to call you guys so we can send as many COVID-positive patients into those nursing homes around here as we possibly can, because you guys did that knowing damn well what was going to happen. You guys did that. Just want to remind you of that. Yeah, we'll follow the science. We'll follow the science, guys, as soon as you start following the science as well. Because remember, you junked everything you knew about herd immunity. You junked everything you knew about the virus. Why? Because you wanted control. And you had control for 975 days of emergency powers. Crazy that we still went through that time. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, there's actually a lot of good news. Following Charlie Kirk's death, people are stepping up like I've never seen before. We'll have some good news before our good news segment about our friend who we lost, Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, check out the new KVI.com. We got all these awesome articles up there. Got movie reviews, got interviews, got tons of other stuff up there. So make sure you check on out what is going on over there. Also, don't forget, if you want to see this beautiful face but this receding hairline, you can check it out over on our social media channels, X, Facebook, Rumble, and we are back on YouTube. That's right. We have beaten the YouTube monopoly, and they let us back on. Too bad they didn't give us back all our followers and all of our content. So it's going to take some time to rebuild that. So if you could head on over and like Ari Hoffman Official over on YouTube, would be much appreciated. There's been some horrible, horrible news. It just seems like it's been unending horrible news, starting with Charlie Kirk's assassination, then after, and then after, and then after. But from tragedy does come some inspiration. Erica Kirk today was named the board chair and CEO of Turning Point USA. I cannot think of a better choice. In fact, the board wrote a letter and said that Charlie Kirk had actually discussed if anything happened to him, and he wanted his wife to take over the organization. After that speech she gave the other day, how that woman held it together, it was inspiring. It was really, really inspiring. And also, I mean, you look at somebody who the day before, we saw what she looked like when she came off Air Force Two. I mean, I can't believe she looked as good as she did during the presentation when she was talking about how Turning Point will continue. The movement my husband started will not die. It was inspiring. It's so inspired. It inspired teenagers like my daughter who wants to start a Turning Point USA chapter now. She's going to be taking it over. Now, the fact that they also announced this before the memorial on Sunday, Jews do mourning very, very differently. This is like we do a week of sitting Shiva. We bury the body right away. This is something I'm kind of in awe. I'm kind of in awe of this woman who is thinking about an organization. I don't know if I'd be able to hold it together if, God forbid, this was me. If, God forbid, this was my family, this was happening. This is inspirational. It's an all-star lineup of people who are speaking, but the board of Turning Point USA issued a statement, and they wrote this. They said, in Ecclesiastes, King Solomon wrote that mankind is to be tested by God. Today we are facing such a test. Yet we also know that God has prepared us with everything we need to overcome this ordeal. It was the honor of our lives to serve as board members at Charlie's side. Charlie prepared all of us for a moment like this one. He worked tirelessly to ensure Turning Point USA was built to survive even the greatest tests. And now is our great pride to announce Erica Kirk as the new CEO and chair of the board for Turning Point USA. Quick, somebody check on Candace Owens. She's probably having a meltdown. All of us at Turning Point USA have a special role in carrying on Charlie Kirk's mantle and completing his vision of bringing us all closer to our Lord and fostering a prosperous country for generations to come. As Charlie always said, we have a country to save. We will not surrender or kneel before evil. We will carry on. The attempt to destroy Charlie's work will become our chance at making it more powerful and enduring than ever before. May God bless Erica, the Kirk family, and the entire team at Turning Point USA. That is the exact right thing to say. Now, Rob in Lakewood texted us, and he said, did you mention the 50,000 new Turning Point USA chapter requests? Charlie lives on. Now, I didn't see it was 50,000. The last one I saw was around 40,000. But at the same time, guys, I wonder, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. I don't want to diminish it, but I wonder how many of those things were like, okay, my daughter wanted to start a club. Did one of her friends also fill out the paperwork? Did one of their friends also fill out the paperwork? I hope that they actually do have 50,000 new requests on the clubs. I really, really do. I hope they get 50,000 more new clubs. I hope they get 100,000 more new clubs. This is all really, really good news that comes out of a tragedy. Here's something else. Cam Higbee. Cam Higbee is now on this Fearless tour, which they are totally funding themselves, and they are going to college campuses just to have these conversations with people. I'm so impressed with Cam Higbee. You know, he could have done the journalism thing and say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to keep covering people, and I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm just going to keep getting the videos of Antifa. He said, I'm going to pick up that microphone, and I'm going to go out and do the same thing Charlie did. And it's really, really amazing. Fox News covered him just the other day. Really great story. Here's something else local for all of us. So Cam Higbee, local hero. But here's another one. The Linden School District Board of Directors is going to be considering a resolution this week that would set aside the first Monday before September 10th each year as Charles James Kirk Day. Resolution 13-25, titled Opposition to Political Violence, an institution of Charles James Kirk Day in support for student debate clubs, affirms the district's commitment to promoting respectful dialogue, civic engagement, and safe learning environments. The Linden School Board believes that it is important for students to have conversations around difficult topics, especially with people of differing views. It emphasizes that respectful dialogue is a cornerstone of a healthy democratic society and highlights the role schools play in preparing students with critical thinking, active listening, and evidence-based reasoning skills. Under the measure, the Monday immediately preceding September 10th will be formally designated as Charles James Kirk Day. On that day, the district will stand in opposition to political violence of any kind with a recommendation that observances be led by students where possible. The resolution also reaffirms support for student debate clubs, noting that participation provides students with opportunities to explore diverse perspectives, construct logical arguments, and collaborate with peers in a structured and respectful environment. The board encourages school leaders, educators, and community partners to expand access to debate opportunities for all interested students. They say violence of any kind is harmful to society, the resolution declares, and that political violence designated to silence voices is particularly harmful. I just want to say this is yet another reason why we had Madeline Somerville on our show today, the Democratic strategist. We are going to keep having these conversations. The left, the radical left, tried to silence us. They tried to silence Charlie Kirk. And look what they did. They inspired Turning Point to be bigger than I think Charlie Kirk even realized it could be. I know he always wanted it to be this big, but I'm not sure he thought he would see it in his lifetime, even if he had lived a long age. This is, if you're looking for some good to come out of a tragedy, look at this kind of good that's coming out. People are having the conversations. People are opening Turning Point USA clubs. His wife is carrying on his legacy. This is all good news in tragedy. Now, the move of the Linden School District stands in stark contrast to the Kent School District, which keeps doubling down and doubling down and doubling down on not lowering the flags as ordered by the president, as ordered by our own governor, even though he's a Democrat. It's just petty. It's just petty. And what message are you sending to your students? What, you don't care about the ones who are conservative? You don't care about the ones who are Christian? You don't care about the ones who vote Republican, whose parents vote Republican? That's completely the wrong message you should be doing. Completely the wrong message. It says a lot more about you than the things you claim you're fighting against. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus tickets to see The Who. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVM. Before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. This one is local, comes to us from King 5. More fast food chicken will soon be available in Snohomish County. Chick-fil-A plans to open a new restaurant on Soper Hill Road near Marysville's border with Lake Stevens this fall, according to location's Instagram account. The Google Maps listing says the restaurant opens in October. It will be Marysville's second Chick-fil-A location, with the other being just steps off I-5 near the Tulalip Casino. The new Chick-fil-A will be part of a brand new development, the Soper Hill Center. Joining the fast food chicken chain will be Chevron gas station, a Brown Bear car wash, and a Partridge, and a Coconut Kenny's Pizza and Tap Room, according to a project brochure posted online. The location is actively hiring, according to its latest social media post. So if you live in the neighborhood, kick your child out of the house and tell them to go get a job and get them off the video games, off the phone, off whatever they're doing.
That's my old neighborhood, by the way, up around there.
Is it?
Yeah.
You know where this thing's going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like the Chick-fil-A?
I do like the Chick-fil-A.
This is a place, it's on my list. You know me, I got my list of things I can't eat. But Chick-fil-A is high up there on that list.
It would be worth it. It would be worth it if you finally do go to that list.
If you just break that whole thing, is that the place you go first, Kevin? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying of the fast food ilk,
yes,
this one is pretty darn good.
Gotcha. Does Wendy's hold up, or is Wendy's not even close?
Wendy's is fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay. All right. Is it the sauce or the chicken itself that's so good?
It's the chicken itself, I'd say.
Okay.
Very juicy, very flavorful. Yeah.
I think you're trying to corrupt me there, Kevin. I think that's what's happening over here. The company has 24 other locations in Washington State, including 5 others in Snohomish County. One of Chick-fil-A's national top competitors, Raising Cane's, will soon open its first Snohomish County location in Linwood. All right, Kevin, Raising Cane's or Chick-fil-A?
I've not had Raising Cane's.
Really?
I think there's one in Vegas on the Strip, but I've never gone to it. I know it's like on the East Coast, and I think more in the South.
Gotcha.
But I've not had it yet, so I can't speak to it.
For new listeners to the Ari Hoffman Show, I keep kosher, and I live vicariously through Mike and Kevin and my other coworkers and young Zach, where they tell me whether a place is worth it or not. Other than that, I just exist on the smells of what they bring to the office, and they will inevitably hear, that smells good, or that smells terrible, or whatever it is.
Usually that smells incredible.
Yes.
Okay. Well.
Yes, exactly. Usually it's that, and I'm stuck here with my water.
Yeah, Popeyes is pretty okay.
Yeah.
And Zaxby's.
I don't know Zaxby's.
That's over, like when I was in Atlanta, there were some Zaxby's around.
Zaxby's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another chicken joint. It was pretty good.
I am unfamiliar with these things. Meanwhile, from King 5, a Midlands woman who decided to splurge and buy a second $10 scratch-off lotto ticket ended up winning big. The woman told South Carolina Education Lottery officials that she entered the convenience store, J&S Food Mart number 8 on Forest Drive, initially wanted to buy 2 $10 scratch-off tickets, but decided to only purchase one. When she scratched that ticket and didn't win, she said she wondered about the ticket she left behind. So I went back and I got it. I scratched it. I thought, am I looking at this right? The second $10 scratch-off won her $1 million. She told lottery officials she couldn't sleep, but will be paying off her debt and saving the rest for a rainy day. J&S Food Mart received $10,000 commission for selling the winning ticket. Oh, yeah, by the way, when you see those winning tickets hung up in that location, that means they sold a ticket and they win as well. Odds of winning a $1 million prize in the $1 Million Mania game are 1 in 1,530,000. 2 more $1 million prizes remain in the game. And speaking of lotto tickets, Melbourne, Australia couple from Melbourne's Brighton suburb are in disbelief after discovering they had overlooked a lottery ticket worth over $13 million for several days. The couple unknowingly held one of the 4 Division I winning entries for over $50 million Powerball drawing announced on September 4th. For us, we call it Schrodinger's lotto ticket. You know, Schrodinger's cat. You don't know if it's alive or dead in the box until you actually open the box. So my wife and I like when we buy lotto tickets, which is very, very rare, we wait for the mega gajillion jackpot ones. So when we actually buy one of those, we go, all right, what would we do with it? What would we do with it? And I'm like, I still like my job. I can keep my job, right? I still like doing this whole radio thing. So even if I win a gajillion dollars, don't worry, Kevin, you're still stuck with me. I like when people listen to me. Money can't buy that, sir. That's right.
I'm sure you'll start your own network online somewhere.
Dude,
so
that
what are you
just sounds,
talking about?
okay, let me tell you, son, I've been self-employed most of my life. I like not having to worry about any of that. Let somebody else worry about
But you'll have enough money to pay somebody else to worry about
No,
the thing.
you still have to worry about it. You have employees, you have employee problems. Need I tell you about that, sir? Before I forget,
You're going to be a gajillionaire. What do you care?
Yeah, it solves everything. No problem. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 2 tickets to The Who at Climate Pledge Arena on September 25th. Remember to check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. Remember to also check out madronafinancial.com and get your tickets to The Who at ticketmaster.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 2 tickets to The Who at Climate Pledge Arena. Phone lines are open now. Give Kevin a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.